Ladies and gentlemen, it's Stevie J from Glow Up or Shut Up and the Wrestling Observer, among other places, and I'm here to report on the latest episode of The Ultimate Fighter. This time, Louis Fisette and David Grant were paired off to fight. But we open with Roxanne Modafferi still upset about her loss last week to Jessica Riccozzi. She's really down about it, she's crying, but she says that her fans would not expect her to be sad, and she's the happy warrior, and she has to prove that she's the happy warrior. So she puts on her brave face and tries to laugh, but you can tell it's eating her up inside that she lost. And then Raquel Pennington talks about being out as a fighter. Apparently she got some crap about it from her mom, and she said her dad was actually the most supportive and made jokes about how he always wanted to have two little boys and tried to make her feel very welcome and very accepted. But mom eventually came around and got with the program and supported her out daughter, so all's well that ends well. Then we go to the fighters getting ready for their fights, Grant and Fisette training, and of course Rousey was keeping a close eye on Grant and saying that he's a very opportunistic fighter. He likes to hurt people on the feet and then go for submissions. That was a little bit of foreshadowing. We'll get there when we get there. He even got a pep talk from Ronda Rousey's mom, the famous world champion judo athlete, who explains to him that his motivation simply needs to be thinking about his kids, because he's got two little kids at home in England, and she says, if Louis was standing between you and your kids, would you let him get in the way? And he says no. But here's the funny thing about it. Louis and David are actually roommates and friends in the house, and Louis even talks about it. He says, we're going to be friends before the fight, we're going to be friends after the fight. We're just going to go in there and scrap because, hey, in training, when we're with our teams, outside of the house, we go in there and beat the hell out of each other in training, and then we still are friends after. So it's just going to be like that, except there's a lot more on the line this time. And indeed there is for Fisette, because he actually got submitted in the lead-ins to the fight house and is getting a second chance here. But he thinks that gives him an advantage. He thinks that because of the fact that he's getting a second chance, he can go out there with absolutely no holds barred and nothing to lose. But they're playing Truth or Dare in the house, and Gutierrez is asked who he thinks the weakest link is on a truth, and he says Fisette. And Fisette takes exception to it, but it doesn't come to blows. Both guys make weight for the fight. Fisette was 135.5, and Grant was 135 on the money. Kim Winslow was our referee for the fight, and in the first round, it went the way of David Grant, because he got a takedown. He was dropping some nasty elbows on top. At one point, Louis was able to get a sweep, but it only lasted for 10 seconds, and then David Grant was able to transition and get it right back, and he was dropping so many bombs at the end of the round that the referee Winslow actually warned Louis Fisette to fight back, but the horn saved him. Unfortunately, things did not go much better for Fisette in round 2. He got taken down 19 seconds in, and once again, the beating came, and then to make matters worse, Grant was able to transition and get his back. He got a warning for grabbing the cage as he was making the transition, but he still made it. And then he sunk in the rear naked choke deep, and Louis tapped out at 1 minute 2 seconds. So he was a good sport about it. He's friends with the guy and has no animosity for him. He picked him up on his shoulders and carried him around the octagon to celebrate the win for him. And then he said, you got to give Louis Fisette props. He was absolutely honest after the fight. He said it was a one-sided beating and Grant was laying the hammer down. I was the one taking the beating. We get the fight announcement. Rousey has evened things up at 2 apiece now, and she goes ahead and leads the session since Dana White's not there for the announcement of the fight pick. Don't know why, doesn't really matter. She chooses Jessamyn Duke to face Raquel Pennington. So she's pinning her hopes on Jessamyn to improve their record to 3-2, but Miesha Tate brags that that's exactly the fight they wanted anyway, and that she feels that Raquel will get right in Jessamyn's face and punch it hard. Oh, and as a side note, there was a little storyline during this episode where Miesha Tate's team decided to play a little prank on Rousey's team and found a little action figure of the Count because they think Edmund, her sparring coach and trainer, looks like the Count from Sesame Street because of his eyebrow all the way across. So they write Edmund on the back of the action figure and then attach a little card to it saying, Good for one free eyebrow wax. Rousey was not amused, and she said they weren't even going to let Edmund see it because she had already promised Dana that there wouldn't be any more crap going on with Edmund and any of the other people in the gym, so they were just going to hide it from him, and she said, I'll just pay back Misha Tate later in the fight. When I get her, I'll get her good. So there wasn't quite as much drama as there was last week, and in fact, there always seems to be more drama on this show when the women are fighting. Maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not, but it was a solid episode of The Ultimate Fighter, nothing really bad about it. I'm Stevie J, Glove Up or Shut Up, Wrestling Observer, and AngryMarks.com.